Today on Locked On Rockies, I got some questions that need answers from a good online community.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 24th day of February in the year 2022. I am your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Rockies fan extraordinaire, Paul Holden. I'm also in the radio biz doing all sorts of radio production and all sorts of good stuff. You can see all types of examples of my work in addition to my Rockies coverage at paulfholden.com. Today on Locked On Rockies, I got some great Rockies questions from a community that I have joined because it's all about a video game that I love dearly, Mario Superstar Baseball for the Nintendo GameCube. Why is this relevant to you as Rockies fans on the wide stream? Maybe you're like, what is he talking about? Well, what's cool about it is it brings a lot of baseball fans together. In addition to really liking a baseball video game, we also really like baseball in general. And we get to you get a good insight and a good look into different types of fandom, because what's nice is this community has fans from all over the place. And what's nice is you're kind of getting perspectives that you're not always thinking about, which is great. And you get inside looks and kind of some stuff that you might not think about, especially because some of these teams with some of the fans that we have in there are it's great. It's super fun. So I asked them to send me Rockies questions so I can answer them and maybe give them the inside look at Rockies fandom and my look at Rockies history. So that's going to be the show today. We are going to dive into that. But first, I did mention yesterday that we are going to talk about the lockout a little bit as well. Folks, it's not looking good. I just want to talk about two things with the lockout. One of them was a Passan tweet. Let's go with his thread here. I'd like to talk about the CBT today. Today was the third consecutive day of bargaining. Neither the league nor the union has made a proposal on the competitive balance tax, which is vital, seeing as it is almost certainly going to determine whether opening day is March 31st. What indicates that, more than anything, is how deeply the league and the union are digging in. Both sides are waiting for the other to make a big move. That big move is on the CBT. Without it, there will be no deal by Monday. That has evolved from presumption to reality. First, let's define the CBT. Again, this is all from Jeff Passan. It is a luxury tax apparatus that penalizes baseball teams whose payrolls exceed a threshold agreed upon by MLB and the MLBPA during collective bargaining. Its current form arrived in 2002 as a way to restrain excessive spending. It does much more. Next, some facts. In 2021, this threshold was $210 million. The union has asked for it to jump to $245 million this year, then $252 million, $259 million, $266 million, and $273 million in the final year. MLB is offering $214 million this year, then $214 million, $216 million, $218 million, and $222 million. You can see already the financial gap is massive. There are monetary and non-monetary penalties for exceeding it. Players want to get rid of the loss of draft picks and offered monetary status quo, 20% tax over the threshold, 32% tax, 20 million to 40 million over, 62.5 tax on blah, blah. Okay. Like that one's a lot of numbers. The union believes MLB's offer is worse than the old CBT, which sunset essentially disappeared. With the expiration of the last deal, the union is correct. A $214 million threshold with worse taxes is a step backwards, though it's not surprising. MLB doesn't want to pay players more. Now the league says CBT is important for competitive balance reasons, even though from 2011 and to 19, there was no correlation between payroll and wins. I did the math. Again, this is Jeff Passan's Twitter feed. That this much is also true. Every World Series winner during that time started the season with a top 11 payroll. There's really your biggest answer right there, folks, about when you're curious about the state of the lockout, when you're curious what's going to happen. At the end of the day, the owners want to continue to have the most amount of control over the money. and they will continue to do that. And again, look at that tax, look at that luxury tax, look at that gap in money. And then not only the gap in money, 40 plus million dollars, but look at the slow increase of wealth with not even a year of wealth increase from the owners in their perspective. Folks, that's what it boils down to. This is too. It's the owners are fine losing if they at the end of the day lose money now, but in the long run get to continue to have the lion's share of the wealth and the money and the revenue. Then that's fine to them. They're okay with games getting canceled. They're not going to say that, but if they can get their version of the agreement of the CBA, if the owners can get what they want. Because players aren't getting paid if games are getting canceled. Tickets aren't being sold. TV isn't broadcasting it. There's all that stuff too. But again, players aren't being paid. Underline bold. But they are willing to make that trade if they can win in the end, in the long run, and keep that wealth. That's what I hate about this. It's not just wealthy versus wealthy. It's the wealthiest wanting to continue to have the stranglehold and the hold over people that are the best and make them more wealthy. There was a good tweet that I saw yesterday, and this is the second thing I wanted to talk about. Saying that Max Scherzer pulls up in a Lamborghini or whatever the heck on that AP headline is irresponsible and is poor framing. That does not add anything to the conversation. Why? Because look at the billionaire owners. What are they coming in? Who's flying in on private jets? How are they getting there? So take that. The people that have mastered a craft, and I think the tweet said something like, Max Scherzer can show up in a Lamborghini or a Porsche or whatever it was. And it might have been a different player that actually showed up. But again, the tweet said, I know it was Max Scherzer. Max Scherzer can show up to the negotiations in a Porsche because he can throw a 97 mile an hour fastball anywhere he wants. Dick Monfort shows up is an owner of a Major League Baseball lead team because he's Kent Monfort's son. Folks, you have to keep that in mind when you're thinking about this. Billionaires versus millionaires. There's still a lot more money on the billionaire side. And I know, according to some wealth stuff, Monfort's not there, but he could flip the Rockies and that property in a second if he wanted to and could become insanely wealthy. The players are not the bad guys because they want a bigger slice of the pie because they do the work. And owners aren't heroes, or we're not owed baseball. We don't have to side with the really rich people just because it's something we want. Because just to say, the players we need baseball in the pandemic or whatever. No, we don't. Because I want the players to be paid for being the best in the world. The best in the world at a sport that is very entertaining. And there's a lot of value. The value is the players, not in the owners. I do not care who owns a team. I care about what the product on the field. I care about the players. I care about the game being played. I care about owners more now because my fandom has evolved. But at the end of the day, people aren't going to watch that. I don't think owners should be the first one to lift trophies at sporting events. Rich people owning rich people things is not something I'm going to sit here and celebrate the rich people for. They are really wealthy and they own sports teams. That's really cool. But there's a lot that goes with that. There's a lot of responsibility and there's a lot of lack of sympathy that I have for you if you are sitting there wanting to keep gobbling up as much money as you possibly can off of the work and dedication of other people. The people that went through the minor leagues that don't even get supported by Major League Baseball all the time. That went to all the practices, that that dedicated their lives to these games. Yet I'm supposed to feel bad because the owners aren't getting what they want because they just want the money stuff. The owners just want more money. They don't care about baseball, folks. At the end of the day, they own a business. They're business owners. They want to keep money. Baseball players, are athletes. They get paid to be really good. And when you make your organization a lot of money, you should be paid a lot of money because you're valuable not only to that organization but the entire industry as a whole. That's my, again, I think I've said that kind of before. I feel like we're circling back, but then again, you read this stuff. Baseball games are going to be canceled not because of the players and this, because the players didn't lock the league out. The players don't get paid if games don't get played. The players are putting themselves at a disadvantage because their usual training regimen and their usual setup has once again been uprooted. Another offseason of uncertainty, of not being able to do what you usually do. That's 3 years in a row that that COVID or these negotiations have impacted the preparations for baseball season. That's something that I don't think is talked about enough either. And the owners did that after the owners insisted we needed baseball in a pandemic. Players did too. There were players that said, yeah, and were willing to do, but that's their job. They get paid to do that. There's a lot of players that said, no, baseball's not worth it in a pandemic. Rockies fans, Ian Desmond said no. Take the performance out. That is a person who was being paid a lot of money. Said no. I know he still gets paid. I know the Rockies honored that contract and stuff, but it's just like, look at the layers. Look at the layers. And yes, you can sit there and say it's billionaires versus millionaires, but then you're just looking at one surface layer argument. You can't just look at sports on the surface anymore because sports there's just so much more nuance surrounding the conversation in sports fandom in the year 2022. What sports mean, what the role they play, and what role the owners and the wealth plays. That's my thoughts about the lockout. Want to answer these fun Rockies questions. I do not mean to go as spirited as I did there. So we will we're going to shift gears into some Rockies questions from outside Rockies fandom, which I'm very excited to answer. But first, got to tell you about the people that help make this show possible, and it's the good folks at Built Bar. Built Bar has everything you need to snack better. They have these options that really are going to help you kick that candy bar craving or just that snack in general, because here's the deal. When you're having a Built Bar, it's not just a protein bar. You're also getting a good source of net carbs and a good source of solid calories. High protein, low calorie, high fiber, low carb. It's high protein and high fiber, but you're still getting a little bit of calories to give you that little bit of burst of energy to kind of get through that day, like what you're looking for in a snack. And the best part is it's going to be low sugar and it's going to be better for you than the most traditional snacking options. Head over to built.com and you can see all the macros for yourself. You'll be blown away. Like I said, high protein, low calorie, high fiber, low carb. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. And there's so many delicious flavors at Built Bar. They are all about the taste. They make it taste delicious first, then figure out how to make it healthy. And I don't know how, but they pull it off every time. Go to built.com and use the promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. That's promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off your order at built.com. 15% off your order at built.com when you use the promo code LOCK15. All right, let's answer some Rockies questions here from the good folks at the Mario Superstar Baseball Netplay server. This first question here is, what was my favorite part of Rocktober? My favorite part of Rocktober was, if you're looking to just boil it down, was the tiebreaker game, and then being able to watch the NLCS final game in person. However, just Rocktober in general and that storyline in sports is criminally underrated. I mean, I got to watch the Rockies in class. That was crazy. People that never worried or were focused on the Rockies or talked about the Rockies were focused in, were lasered in. Yeah, and that was the thing. I mean, everyone was talking about the Rockies because what they were doing was incredible. And to get to the World Series only to have the brakes slammed on them because the Indians weren't able to get the job done is awful. I Rocktober is one of my favorite sports things, but it's also a brutal heartbreak. And honestly, I don't really know why it's not talked about more. I think Rocktober is a undervalued and underappreciated moment in sports, in baseball history. For the Rockies to do what they did, to go against the teams that they did, and then get to where they were. Yes, they got overmatched. They were outmatched by the Red Sox in the World Series. They got dominated and swept. I had Game 5 World Series tickets too. But but I truly believe that's because the momentum stopped. Like if the train didn't have to stop, no one was stopping the Rockies there. And it's just a revision at this point, and it's in my brain, but the energy, just the passion for the Rockies during Rocktober was awesome. But if you want to boil it down to specific games, the tiebreaker game is probably the best game in Rockies history. And seeing Todd Helton scoop, dive, hands up in person. I mean, that's it. That's the best. Can't be beat. I've asked, did Matt Holliday touch home plate? He did touch home plate, and everyone's like, and even I sent my new Rockies fan the game for him to watch. He's never watched the game, and he's like, he totally gets blocked. But I truly believe that when he scrumps, like when he gets hit and when he engages in the catcher, the cameras aren't good enough to see, but I think he gets enough onto the dish. Regardless, no matter what you want to say, the umpire said safe. So Matt Holliday touched home plate. Doesn't matter what you say, but the call was safe. Okay, here we go. Is Todd Helton a Hall of Famer? Todd Helton is a Hall of Famer, and we've talked a lot about this on the podcast, but Todd Helton is a special player. Todd Helton is someone that deserves more recognition and is rightfully getting the attention that he deserves. I think a lot of people see what Todd Helton did in the era that he played in, and they're going to see that that's going to be greatness. If we really care about performance in the steroid era and steroid use, Todd Helton's never been associated with that, and he still was one of the best players for a long, long time. The mainstream look, of course, is never going to die, but within baseball writing, with Larry Walker getting in and great baseball players being on the Rockies, you cannot ignore the Rockies for just being in Colorado. The argument's unfair and it sells people short. And I know no one cares about this, but Todd Helton was one of the best defensive players I've ever seen in my entire life. I know it's first base or whatever, but Todd Helton built the confidence of these infielders. I think having Todd Helton in your organization, and then when you look at it, an infield of dominance that follows, and players that are really good at defense and are willing to take the risks and willing to do crazy plays because they know that they have a chance. That's built because of a player like Todd Helton, because they know that they're throwing to a backstop, that they're throwing to one of the best. So in my eyes, yes, Todd Helton is a slam dunk, no doubt about it, Hall of Famer. Wasn't first ballot, that's fine. Have him take the journey, but he's more than deserving, especially when you look at some of the names on this list. And again, I'll just put my 2 cents in there. So, we have to put the best players in the Hall, and players like Todd Helton are the best player. Okay. Couple more questions, but let's take a quick break here and tell you about MLB prospects, Locked On MLB prospects, because they are the place for you to check out the MLB stars of tomorrow. And host Lindsey Crosby is a prospect encyclopedia, and he's going deep on the MLB Stars of Tomorrow. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. Also, BetOnline helps make this show possible, and football might be over for the season, but basketball full steam ahead for both pro and college hoops. And you know where you need to go to stay up to date for the latest odds, totals, player performance props, and so much more is betonline.net. They are the number one spot for all your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline.net is your source for hockey, boxing, and UFC odds, right to the Olympic coverage and information for the next one. I keep going on autopilot and reading that one. But you know what? We get ahead of ourselves and we say BetOnline.net is still going to be the number one spot for your Olympic coverage and information when they go to Paris in 2 years. Head to the website, betonline.net, or use your mobile device to learn about the trends and action and get to the number one spot for all your sports betting needs. BetOnline, where the game starts. More Rockies questions here. What is your favorite forgotten Rocky that you saw play? This is a great question. And I said one yesterday. I love Dexter Fowler. I think Dexter Fowler was a great baseball player, a great presence on the Rockies. Such a fun player to have on the team. I think he really made a good impact, and I just really liked that. I just liked his style of play, and I think that fast, speedy center field play at Coors Field is just so great. And it was just so fun to watch him, cover so much ground. And then I really thought he had a great leadoff batter approach as well. I thought he was someone that really understood what his strengths were as a hitter and didn't try to do too much as well. And then plus, was able to drive the ball. And when he was able to really connect with something, I thought he was really fun. And honestly, I'm very happy that he at least got to. I'm pretty bummed that how the end of his career has gone, but I am very happy that he at least got to be on championship teams and has played a lot of meaningful baseball. And and just because this is someone who's asking the question outside of Rockies fandom, because this might sound crazy, but I think Carlos Gonzalez is a criminally underrated baseball player in the mainstream. He was Ken Griffey cool. Like, that's what he was. His presence on the field, his abilities. He was my eras. I watched Ken Griffey Jr. play a lot of baseball, sure, but when I'm talking about like formidable, I'm there, I'm at the ballpark, I'm actively knowing and engaging with the Rockies and knowing what is going on in terms of the season, not just I'm loving baseball, I'm watching Griffey and all this stuff. Cargo had that same type of energy around him, just that every time he was up to the plate, there was the chance that he might hit one 600 feet, and it was awesome. And when he did, he dropped his bat in the coolest way. And I just think he was great on the field, great for the Rockies. Seeing him play in Chicago in another uniform was very weird. And again, someone that I don't think got to go out the way he would like to go out. Yeah. And again, I'm going to give a shout out to Ubaldo Jimenez and Jorge De La Rosa too. Again, all these people I know are very popular within Rockies fandom, but those are names that you might associate elsewhere, but are big time Rockies, and it's going to really be unfortunate when that's Nolan Arenado in that conversation. Okay, I think we got time for. Oh, this was a good answer because the follow-up one person said was my favorite. Why is it Vinny Castilla? Yeah, honestly, the Blake Street Bombers would fill that with that category as well. They were so much fun. Andres Galarraga, Vinny Castilla, Dante Bichette, Larry Walker, such cool baseball players. So fun to just have people that can just dominate on the offense side of the ball. That looks like that's all the questions. That's going to be it for today's Locked On Rockies. We're going to be back in action next week for you all with more Rockies coverage as we'll continue to walk through this lockout together, hoping that we get some baseball real soon, because we're going to dive in when spring training's on. We're watching games. We're breaking down spring training games. That's going to be the plan. We're talking this state of the Rockies because The Rockies need to be a busy team after the lockout, and there needs to be a lot to talk about from this club once they do that. But we're going to wrap things up today. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rockies your first listen of the day. We are free and streaming on your favorite streaming platform. Please leave us a review. Please leave us a rating. It helps so much. And if you like the videos, head on over to our YouTube, Locked On Rockies on YouTube, and hit that subscribe button. All that stuff is a huge help to me. So thank you all so much for already doing that. And for those new folks that want to do that to support this wonderful podcast, for all those wonderful Rockies fans out there. Go make Locked On Bets your second listen of the day so you can win some money on the latest sports action tonight. I'm Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.